especially our guests, that we will be recording the meeting. Your audio and video contributions may be used for club marketing purposes. Today's theme, our Toastmaster will go into more detail. Our theme is chaos and order. I do have a bachelor's degree myself in mathematics, and you may not know this, but chaos theory is a branch of mathematics. It focuses on the behavior of dynamical systems that are highly sensitive to initial conditions. In other words, the deterministic nature of these systems does not make them predictable. This behavior is known as deterministic chaos, or simply chaos. Okay, please welcome, I guess I'll turn it over to our Toastmaster of the day, Madam VPM. Is that true? I think
that's in order.
Very good. Our Toastmaster of the day, I believe, is Tiger. Please take it away.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, all my fellow online presenters. This is going to be a wonderful meeting, and as Lou said, our theme is chaos and order, and hopefully there'll be more order than chaos as we proceed. So let me first introduce our timer of the evening, who also is responsible for the theme of the day. I will blame it on her. Asil, could you please give us your timer report?
My role is to time each segment and each speakers. So I have 3 colors. For example, if we do table topic session, we speak from 1 minute to 2 minutes. So I'll be showing colors like green at 1 minute, yellow at 1 and 30 minutes, and you have 30 seconds to wrap up your speech. And on the second, I'll be showing red. If you go over 30 seconds, you will be seeing this sign, over 30 seconds. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you.
And thank you, Asil. So pin Asil for your timing, and you'll be able to make sure you stay within your time limit. So our next person that's going to help me facilitate this meeting is our awe counter, who is Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I will be focusing on or listening for crutch words such as you know, so, and I will give you a report toward the end. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Well, thank you for that short and sweet explanation, Roger. Next, we have Lou, who is graciously volunteered to be our grammarian for the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As grammarian, I will be listening for creative uses of grammar, incorrect usage of grammar, words not used in everyday language, and of course, use of our word of the meeting, which is logic. Logic is a noun. It means reasoning conducted or assessed according to strict principles of validity, or a system of set principles underlying the arrangements of elements in a computer or electronic device so as to perform a specific task. An example of the word is, while emotion often comes into play when debating a topic, logic and facts are the more effective tools. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lou, for that cerebral explanation, as we usually get from you. Jacinta, you have 2 roles, and I need you to be long-winded. Where did she go? Is she still there? I lost her on my little Brady. Oh, she's down in the right corner of Brady Bunch. There she is. Jacinta, I need you to be long-winded because I need to plug in my cell phone. As in the beauty of chaos, my cell phone just died and I have all my introductions. So Jacinta, please be long-winded and give your 2 roles, if you would, please. And I will be right back.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I will be serving in 2 roles. The first role will be as your watcher. What does the watcher mean? No, I'm not talking about Big Brother and seeing what you're doing in your private time at home. No, today I'm just going to be checking to make sure everyone looks as beautiful as they all are, and to make sure that you are within this frame and that your backgrounds look appropriate, nothing looks too weird or funny, and does it appear well on camera. So that's the role as the watcher today. As your chat monitor, I'm going to be checking to see that we are having fun and engaging conversations via chat. Definitely communicate and congratulate our speakers, our evaluators, table topics. We want to make sure that it's a fun and enjoyable chat session. I'll be sending a report later on to highlight some of the very exciting moments that take place in our chat. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Jacinta, thank you very much for covering for me. I probably didn't even have to encourage you to be long-winded, but I do certainly appreciate that. So, the vote counter is Christian. Can you give us a quick explanation of what you're going to do for us tonight, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. So as vote counter, I think I've got the best role in the session today. I'm going to enjoy the speeches, the evaluation, the table topics, because my role is for you at the end of each segment to send me your vote for the best speaker, table topic speaker, and evaluator, and I'll send all the wrap-up and the count to the Toastmaster of the session at the end. It's as simple as that. Over to you, Toastmaster Tiger.
Excellent. Thank you very much to all my team. This is going to be an excellent, excellent meeting. So let's get to the first part of our meeting, which is our speakers. I'm very excited. We have a great lineup. First is Carol. This is the Interpretive Reading Manual, project number 5, the oratorical speech. Say that 3 times real fast. Title is President Obama's Remarks on Immigration. The objectives are to understand the structure of an effective speech. 8 to 10 minutes. In 1956, U.S. Air Force navigator, oh my goodness. Hold on, here we go. In 1956, U.S. Air Force navigator Art Prahinsky flew 2 plane loads of refugees from Hungary to New Jersey. In 2011, our charter member, Carol Prahinsky, I'm assuming there's a relationship, married a Canadian, experienced U.S. immigration process firsthand twice. The immigration process is arduous and complicated, and that's not even talking about illegal immigration. Tonight, Carol Prahinsky will share the oratorical speech presented by President Barack Obama in 2014. Please join us in welcoming Carol. Yahoo!
Yay! Woohoo! Thank you, Tiger. Today's speech presented November 20th, 2014 to the Americans. My fellow Americans, tonight I'd like to talk to you about immigration. For more than 200 years, our tradition of welcoming immigrants from around the world has given us a tremendous advantage over other nations. It has kept us youthful, dynamic, and entrepreneurial. It has shaped our character as a people with limitless possibilities. People not trapped by our past, but able to remake ourselves as we choose. But today, our immigration system is broken, and everybody knows it. Families who enter our country the right way and play by the rules watch others flout the rules. Business owners who offer their wages, good wages and benefits, see the competition exploit undocumented immigrants by paying them far less. All of us take offense to anyone who reaps the rewards of living in America without taking the responsibilities of living in America. The undocumented immigrants who desperately want to embrace those responsibilities see little option but to remain in the shadows or risk their families being torn apart. It's been this way for decades. And for decades, we haven't done much about it. When I took office, I committed to fixing this broken immigration system. And I began by doing what I could to secure our borders. Today, we have more agents and technology deployed to secure our southern border than at any time in our history. And over the past 6 years, illegal border crossings have been cut by more than half. Although this summer there was a brief spike in unaccompanied children being apprehended at our border, the number of such children is actually lower than it has been in nearly 2 years. Overall, the number of people trying to cross our border illegally is at the lowest level since the 1970s. Those are the facts. Tonight, I'm announcing actions. Those actions are taken by presidents before me that will help make our immigration system more fair and more just. First, we'll build on our progress at the border with additional resources for our law enforcement personnel so they can stem the flow of illegal crossings and speed the return of those who do cross over. Second, I'll make it easier and faster for high-skilled immigrants, graduates, and entrepreneurs to stay and contribute to our economy so that, as so many business leaders have proposed. Third, we'll take steps to deal responsibly with the millions of undocumented immigrants who already live in our country. I want to say more about this third issue because it generates the most passion and controversy. Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. That's why over the past 6 years, deportation of criminals are up 80%. And that's why we're going to keep focusing enforcement resources on the actual threats to our security. Felons, not families. Criminals, not children. Gang members, not a mom who's working hard to provide for her kids. We prioritize just like law enforcement does every day. But even as we focus on deporting criminals, the fact is millions of immigrants in every state, of every race and nationality still live here illegally. And let's be honest, tracking down, rounding up, and deporting millions of people isn't realistic. Anyone who suggests otherwise isn't being straight with you. It's also not who we are as Americans. After all, most of these immigrants have been here a long time. They work hard, often in tough, low-paying jobs. They support their families. They worship at our churches. Many of the kids are American-born or spent most of their lives here, and their hopes, dreams, and patriotism are just like ours. As my predecessor, President Bush, once put it, they are a part of American life. Now, here's the thing. We expect people who live in this country to play by the rules. We expect those who cut the line will not be unfairly rewarded. So we're going to offer the following deal. If you've been in America for more than 5 years, if you have children who are American citizens or illegal residents, if you register, pass a criminal background check, and if you're willing to pay your fair share of taxes, you will be able to apply to stay in this country temporarily without fear of deportation. You can come out of the shadows and get right with the law. That is the deal. Now let's be clear what it is not. This deal does not apply to anyone who's come into the country recently. It does not apply to anyone who might come into the country illegally in the future. It does not grant citizenship or the right to stay here permanently, or offer the same benefits that citizens receive. Only Congress can do that. All we're saying is we're not going to deport you. I know some of the critics of the action call it amnesty. Well, it's not. Amnesty is the immigration system we have today. Millions of people who live here without paying their taxes or playing by the rules, with politicians use the issue to scare people and whip up votes at election time. That's the real amnesty, leaving this unbroken system the way it is. Mass amnesty would be unfair. Mass deportation would be both impossible and contrary to our character. What I'm describing is accountability, a common sense middle ground approach. If you meet the criteria, you can come out of the shadows and get right with the law. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the US illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer: pass a bill. I want to work with both parties to pass a more permanent legislative solution. And the day I sign that bill into law, the actions I take will no longer be necessary. Our history and the facts show that immigrants are a net plus for our economy and our society. And I believe it is important that all of us have this debate without impugning each other's character. Because for all the back and forth in Washington, we have to remember that this debate is about something bigger. It is about who we are as a country, and who we want to be for future generations. Are we a nation that tolerates hypocrisy, where workers who pick the fruit and make our beds never have a chance to get right with the law? Or are we a nation that gives them a chance to make amends, take responsibility, and give their kids a better future? Are we a nation that accepts the cruelty of ripping children from their parents' arms? Or are we a nation that values families and work to keep them together? Are we a nation that educates the world's best and brightest in our universities only to send them back home to create businesses in their countries that compete against us? Or are we a nation that encourages them to stay and create jobs here, create businesses here, create industries right here in America? That's what this debate is all about. My fellow Americans, we are and always will be a nation of immigrants. We were strangers once too. And whether our forebears were strangers who crossed the Atlantic or the Pacific or the Rio Grande, we are here only because this country welcomed them in and taught them that to be an American is about something more than what we look like and what our last names are and how we worship. What it means, what makes us American, is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal and all of us have the chance to make our lives what we will. That's the country our parents and grandparents and generations before them built for us. That's the tradition we must uphold. That's the legacy we must leave for those who have yet to come. Toastmaster.
Wow. Talk about trying to create order out of chaos. My goodness. A logical solution to immigration. That'll never happen. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I should be more optimistic than that. Thank you so much, Carol, for that. Our next speaker, David. Let me read his introduction. The most popular political affiliation in the U.S. today is none of the above, also known as no party affiliation or independent. David argues it's better to pick a political party, even if it's not the one that you prefer, Members from outside the U.S., please forgive that this speech focuses on the U.S., although some of the general observations may be relevant to your locale. The title of this speech, very simply and logically, is Why You Should Choose a Political Party. David.
Thank you, Tiger. You know, I didn't look at the theme of the meeting before I chose this particular speech, but how perfect is it that I'm talking about American politics during the chaos meeting? So I hope that those of you who are from outside the US will be able to appreciate this as maybe covering some of the answers, some clues to the question, what the heck's going wrong in America? Because I am going to be talking about some peculiarities of the American system, the way it is structured up, the way it has evolved over the years to where we have something called the two-party system, even though that's not in the Constitution. Many people who wrote the Constitution discouraged us from forming political parties in the first place, but this is the way it shakes out. In order to elect a president, in order to elect other chief executives, we wind up forming teams. And other countries do it in, you know, a much more logical, rational way. Isn't that right, Nicola Honey? The UK, with its parliamentary system, has things all figured out, unlike us. But in the US, I'm going to argue that you ought to choose a political party. And this is the trend that I'm reacting against. This is a poll by the Gallup organization. And the runaway leader in party affiliation, again, is none of the above. I don't want to have anything to do with either of these political parties. So we're up to about 42% as no party affiliation voters. And I guess one thing to watch about these statistics, this is the Gallup organization doing public opinion surveys. So this is what people report, which might not be exactly how the voter registration totals act up. But this is what people say. And one interesting thing is that if you ask the voters which way they lean, it actually turns out that independents aren't necessarily that much more independent than anybody else. Most of them have a leaning towards one political party or the other, regardless of whether they have decided to affiliate. What's one other thing that I wanted to mention about this slide, though? In Gallup's report on these trends, one of their, I would say it's really a speculation, but one of their ideas about why partisanship that we think is poisonous and bad in general has gotten more intense is that the people who are not on the extremes are sort of filtering themselves out of the political parties, leaving the two political parties to be more concentrated doses of their viewpoints. So if you want less partisanship, maybe you've got to be part of this trying to get people to choose a side if that's the way the country is going to work things. And more specific than the US, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Florida vote. I originally gave this presentation at my home club. So we can see the no party affiliation. It's actually not as big as you would think based on that last slide from the Gallup organization, but it's about 27% of the vote, close to a third of the vote is not affiliated with either party. And in my local county, it's actually a little bit higher, 28%. It's actually more voters identify as no party affiliation than identify as Republicans. And why does all this matter? Trying to cut through some of the blah, blah, blah here. Well, these are the 3 dates that are significant in Florida. And can you guess what those 3 dates are? Well, when I asked the audience at my home club, somebody said the first one, well, that must be Super Tuesday. Which it's not, because Florida is not part of Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday in 2020 will be March 3rd, so a couple of weeks before that. And those of you who don't know what Super Tuesday is, there are a bunch of states that all hold the primaries on the same day. And it's somewhat of an intentional effect to try and get a snowballing support behind some particular candidate by having somebody on that particular day. So we have a presidential preference primary, which only comes around every 4 years. The parties decide who's going to represent themselves in the presidential race. And then in August, and the dates would vary depending on your part of the country, we have a primary election that usually covers congressional races, might cover some local races. In my area, it also includes the school board election. And if a candidate wins more than 50% of the vote, they're elected. If they don't, then they go to a runoff in the general election. And then November 3rd will be the big day. But in my state, at least, if you're not part of a political party, you miss out on 2 of these 3 chances. And miss out, well, I think it's a bad thing not to be able to vote. But I also think it's a bad thing for smart folks like you not to be part of deciding who the ultimate choices are going to be. We want to have better choices by the time we get to the final decision, the final election date. In the schoolhouse rock ideal of how this is supposed to work, the 2 parties would pick the wisest, the most experienced, the most level-headed, smartest people out of all the country, and they would match them up and we would vote. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to work out that way. Maybe some of that comes into this negative partisanship that we perceive to be happening in our country. But to play the game, to be a part of this process and to try and make it better, you should affiliate with a political party. Now, I happen to have a strong preference. I go out and do voter registration with a clipboard too, and I would like people to register as a Democrat. I'm not allowed to tell them that. But when they get to that line where they're supposed to check off political party affiliation, they tend to ask me, do I have to? No, you don't have to, but you should to more fully participate in the process. Here is where you can go to register or update your voter registration. This is a national nonprofit that will direct you to the various state websites you would need to go to. And at the end of the day, I want you to be able to say that I voted and I voted in the primary. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Another attempt to add logic to politics. Wow. You guys are optimistic people. I recommend giving cookies to those people that register. All right, our third speaker, hopefully he's going to go a different tact here. I believe he is. Chris is doing his 28th Toastmaster speech in pursuit of the Legacy DTM. This speech project is Storytelling Advanced Manual and is called The Moral of the Story. He's going to speak for 5 to 7 minutes and tell a story with an unexpected conclusion that offers a lesson. Title of the speech is Our Big Family Secret. Chris, take it away, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I'm going to talk about something that most people, even those that are really close to me and know my family and me and my siblings, don't even know. It's like our big family secret. Though I grew up the oldest child in my family, what most people don't know is that I have an older half-sister. I first found out about her when I was about 7, but it's not because I met her. My dad told me about her. To this day, I never understood why my dad would entrust a 7-year-old with this secret, especially when he made me promise not to tell anyone and never pursue it. That obviously made me want to know more. So growing up, I made it my secret mission to find my older half-sister, which is going to be extremely difficult because I almost had zero information on her. All I knew was my mother got pregnant in high school, had to give her up for adoption, and had named the baby Jessica. I didn't know her birthplace or even her birth date. My mom grew up outside Chicago, so my assumption was that my sister was born near there. But I quickly learned that the state of Illinois was not about to unseal any records for me since I was only the sibling. And this is all pre-internet too, so I was this 12-year-old who knew almost nothing about the world, and all my searching was using the mail in the library, things that seem sort of antiquated now. And I searched from the time I was 12 to about when I was 16. I gained a little bit of information, like pulling my own medical records to see if there was any mentions of births prior to mine. And I entered what little information I had into various registries around the world and then sort of forgot about it. I was 16, I just learned how to drive, and different things became important. Then when I was about 23, about 7 years later, I was an undergrad at Penn State and living in a fraternity house with 9 other guys. 3 of us shared a landline, something else that's kind of antiquated. And then one day my roommate delivered a message to me that he thought sounded really odd. He goes, "Hey, they said they found your sister. What does that even mean?" Here, one of the registries I put information on matched us up. So they gave me my sister's phone number. It was the moment I had been waiting and hoping and dreaming about for so long. And I have to tell you, that first phone call was everything I had hoped it would be and more. We talked for hours, and though we had never met before, it was like we knew each other our entire lives. My sister actually now went by the name of Susie, and when I was in college, we kept in touch quite a lot, actually. She really felt like family, and it was time for me to graduate. She told me that my present from her family was a round-trip ticket to San Francisco, where they lived. I was finally going to meet her, my own flesh and blood, well, half of it, standing in the same room as I was. I could hardly contain myself. I always wanted an older sister, and now I was going to have one in my life. I dreamt it was going to be like all those reunions you see on TV or in movies where there's lots of hugging and happy tears and a party and so much talking and catching up on the past, and most importantly, making up for lost time. As I prepared for the trip, I poured over thousands of pictures, put together some photo albums for Susie, and knew that this was going to be a turning point in my life and relationship with my older half-sister. And well, it didn't turn out like that. It didn't turn out like anything at all, in fact. I did make the trip to San Francisco, and I did meet my half-sister. But that really is about where the story ends. There was no hugging. There were no happy tears. There was, well, nothing. My sister, for the entire week I was out there, barely said a word to me. It was honestly one of the strangest experiences of my life. My husband, or her husband, God love him, he felt like more of a brother to me than she was being a sister. During my time there, her husband Scott would pore over photo album after photo album of Susie growing up, while she sat there 10 feet away and said nothing. That struck me as so odd, especially because he wasn't even there when she was growing up. Through the week, they tried to take me sightseeing around Northern California, but it was so awkward. At one point, Scott tried to take a picture of us and said to Susie, "Get next to your brother," and she shot him this weird look that plunged into me like a knife. I eventually asked Scott what I did wrong, and even he didn't have an answer. Maybe Susie and I had this expectation of this unforgettable reunion that would change our lives, but that's not what was happening. And that's when I realized no one knew what Susie was going through. No one. Not mentally, not emotionally. Maybe my sister didn't even know why she was acting the way she did. I certainly don't think she planned it that way. Why would you buy someone an expensive plane ticket, someone you've been wanting to meet, only to give them the cold shoulder? When I went out there, I made it a point not to come on too strong because I didn't know what my sister was ready for. But in my experience, she wasn't ready for anything. Maybe she thought she was, but that all changed once we got inside the same room. And I couldn't bring myself to ask her. It just seemed to be off limits. Everything seemed to be off limits with her, which then made me realize she was definitely related to my mom. And though my sister was supposed to drop me off at the airport to go home, she elected not to. She asked her husband to. There was clearly something she was avoiding by not communicating with me. Now, my sister had a happy adoptive family. I mean, I met them, and they seemed to hold the excitement in meeting me that I thought my sister would. But that whole situation taught me not to set expectations based on preconceived ideas. Without realizing it, we as humans tend to do that. I mean, if we've never been to a wedding or a funeral or graduation, we might expect it to look like what we've seen or heard but not experienced yet. I know I was expecting a family reunion like the ones I saw in Unsolved Mysteries or Long Lost Family, but reality is much more complicated than TV or movies. People are much more complicated. And there's not always a happy ending where you thought one would be. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Chris, for that very emotional and touching speech. So we are done with part one of our meeting. 3 excellent speeches. Now we get to go to our impromptu section. This is my favorite part of the meeting, and I'm very excited because Marianne is going to be our topics master. This is her first attempt at being the topics master, and I know she's been working hard and looking forward to this. So Marianne, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics. Well, today I thought we would go on with the topic of chaos and order. And for me, chaos and order currently has to do with online presenters, being a fairly new online presenter. So I thought we'd try to get some order out of chaos. So my first question is for Christian. And that question is, you have a beautiful background, I noticed, and I can't really tell if it's real or it's fake. Can you tell me how you go about choosing your background?
Oh, for sure it's real. It's so real that I just have to wake up so early in the morning and join the session. Thank you for the question, Madam Table Topics Master. Unfortunately, no, it's a virtual background, and I'll show you how it really looks like at my end. So this is me without the background, and you can see part of the white part of the wall as well. And I'm going to put here my state right now, sitting on the road in the middle of nowhere. So how do I do it? Well, it's just about taking pictures of the places I visit in Mauritius, and there are a couple of places that I've got from the online environment, and trying to avoid the chaos and trying to keep things simple. You'll see a lot of pictures from my honeymoon trips, and that's why whenever I'm online, you will never, ever, ever see my home minister with me online, because if she sees those backgrounds, she's going to tell me, Christian, why are you sharing our fond memories with so many people across so many time zones? Did you ask for permission? And since I won't be able to answer that table topic question, I will just say, well, that's a good side of being a being a Toastmaster. But at some point, you're not going to be able to answer some questions, my dear. And that's one of those moments. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I know that I'm not going to be able to answer her question at some point in my life. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Marianne, I want to jump in real quickly.
I was just going to say, before we move on to the next table topics, we'll allow Elaine to ask you a few things.
I have one of my guests at least prepared to give their why I want to join online presenters speech. This is something that's required for people who want to join but have not had Toastmaster experience before or 6 speeches before. Anne Marie would like to do that. And I'd also like to poll Rainey or Trisha, because I know this is a second or later visit for you. So if either of you would like to follow up with that address, just let me know now. And it's fine if it's yay or if it's fine if it's nay. We just want to proceed ahead well. Trisha, yay or nay? I'll take that as a nay. And Rainey, so we'd like to turn this over to you, Anne Marie, if you would unmute. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, everybody, and hi to everybody. Yes, this is today my third time, and I actually do want to join because I want to start also presenting and doing some conferences with certain knowledge I got through my life or through my experience. And I like this group. And one of the reasons I want to go there is also I know I can learn a lot of everybody. I think everybody has a message to give. And I always look forward to see, okay, what I'm learning out of it. Especially today, I'm not from the US. So it was very interesting to hear how the whole process here is, even though I'm American, I didn't know exactly how it goes and what the expectations, what I heard, so that's great. I love it, and I know as well that being on the internet, that's going to be our future communication. I have to learn, sorry, Sept, I have to learn more about it. I hope that I'll manage, and I'm sure with all your help that will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie. Back to you, Marianne.
Right, perfect. So as far as online Toastmasters, online presenters is concerned, there's always, in spite of the fact that you're in a controlled environment, there are always these unexpected things that happen. For example, my cat would always love to know what's going on in that room, and she has made an appearance once or twice. So Antoinette, what kind of challenges do you have with being in the Online Presenters Club, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Good evening to all my Toastmasters. I had many challenges joining the online presenters primarily because of maybe technological issues. One of them was the virtual background. I've always been fascinated with the various virtual backgrounds that most of you all have, or most of you all do. And I tried and I tried and I tried countless times. I couldn't get it. I was getting frustrated. But then I called on Roger, and he helped me a lot. I got his number and so on, and we WhatsApp each other, and I eventually tried. And I did get through. I'm not perfect as yet, but at least I believe that I've overcome the challenge of having a virtual background, because I'm always fascinated with the many types of various colors and various background of the virtual background. Back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. Now, Jacinta, can I call on you? I know you have 2 roles.
Sure.
Okay. PowerPoints. I thought of you because you had a great PowerPoint the other day. PowerPoints can be a friend or foe. Can you please tell us how you use PowerPoint in online presenters to ensure that it adds to your presentation as opposed to creates chaos in your presentation?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. PowerPoint, friend or foe? I would say PowerPoint is both a friend and a foe, because often the presentations themselves are great. We are speakers, we use vocal variety and etc. But sometimes you need to add that little touch of salt, which would be having a background or having your PowerPoint presentation. The images themselves help to add more interesting aspects to your presentation, because sometimes when you're speaking, we hear you, but a picture, as most of us know, is really worth 1,000 words. Using PowerPoints into your speeches can help emphasize points that may be sometimes hard for you to actually articulate, which is the reason why I use PowerPoints in my presentation, such as David did earlier today. But as David has mentioned many times, technology can sometimes work against us. And it does, because there's often times where you may have a PowerPoint presentation, everything is just beautiful, perfect. And for some reason, it doesn't look like the way it's supposed to. And it's so frustrating. So PowerPoint can be a friend and a foe, but keep in mind, friend and foes, they work together, they balance each other off, and it helps to make your presentations even more impactful than you wanted them to be. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Jacinta. Now, I learn new things every meeting. Sherry, as a potential new member, or as a guest, what has so far been your favorite aha moment as you have been observing this Toastmaster meeting? We can't hear you, Sherry. Unmute yourself. Oh, we still can't hear you. Do you want to pass? We cannot hear you. Okay, thank you. I will pass that question on to another guest. Now, I had another question for you, but let's, Psyche Shore, did I say that correctly? Would you like to answer that question? And the question was, what is your favorite aha moment so far in the meeting today?
Thank you, Table Topics Master. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters and fellow guests. It's been great. It's been a great time till now for me during my first meeting of the online presenters. First off, I've never attended a meeting such as this one, be it in Skype or in Zoom or in other online virtual platforms. So this was quite new to me. The first taste of online presenters was when I just typed facebook.com and I typed in online presenters, and I was mind boggled to see the cover picture, which was actually a video, and there were like 20 people just talking. For a second, I didn't realize if it was a Facebook cover picture, or did I just click the link for a video and is my face seen? So yeah, and I was startled by the way the Facebook page is set up and the kind of posts that are being put up, which is extremely professional. And coming to today's meeting, I was first off, I was startled to see the various kinds of backgrounds that you have in the in your screen. As in, for example, the Table Topic Master has order and chaos to the right and left respectively, and someone had a picture of outer space, so that was out of the world. I was startled by the technology aspect of conducting such a professional meeting. Having attended over I would say 200 normal meetings, this is my first taste of a technology oriented virtual meeting, and I'm loving it till now. And I like the way each person is getting a chance to speak, and each person is unmuting himself or herself to speak, and the order which is followed, and the logic that goes behind it. I think I've used the word of the day once. So yeah, so I'm beginning to like this, and I hope I can be a part of many more table topics and many more prepared speeches on online presenters. Thank you so much.
Very good. Mr. Tabletop, maybe Mr. Toastmaster, how much time do I have for, how many opportunities do I have to continue on?
Timer, Asil, can you help me out with that question?
Oh, we should be wrapping up now. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Carol. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Great job. Thank you, Marianne.
Excellent job, Marianne. Way to create order out of potential chaos. You're very flexible. An excellent question. So, I said a so. Where's the odd counter? I'm busted. We're going to now turn this meeting over to our general evaluator. We know that Elaine is not very enthusiastic, but she's very efficient. So hopefully we'll get a little enthusiasm out of her this time. Elaine, can you please take us to our the third part of our meeting, the evaluation sector. Thank you.
Indeed, I will do that. And I'm going to back us up just a little bit because I would like Asil to address us and let us know within each of the three categories, first speeches, then second table topics, whether everyone who participated met the timing qualifications. Once we know that, then we can, for those who haven't been following in the chat, then votes can be sent to our vote counter, Christian. Asil.
Yes, ma'am. Everyone is qualified, and yeah, please send your vote to Christian. Thank you.
Okay, so we have, please send your vote for either Carol, David, or Chris to Christian. And I don't have quite all the list for the table topics respondent. So Marianne, do you recall those? Can you list those for us, please?
I can list it from the chat. Marianne, do you want to take it?
No, go ahead and take it.
Okay, Christian, Anne Marie, Antoinette, Jacinta, and Sakashore.
Okay.
5 of them. 5 of them. Wow.
So we're chock full of guests tonight. Not chock full of nuts, but we have made good order out of relative chaos in the meeting. A little relative chaos before the recording started, finding people in the roles, and, you know, some folks having trouble with bandwidth, but lots of folks are doing this great thing of just taking down their photo and just, you know, putting up their, taking down their live video and photo so their bandwidth is working well. So good move. What I'd like to do now in the first spot is introduce Jim Barber, who will provide the evaluation for Carol Prahinsky. Jim Barber, take it away.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. My fellow Toastmasters, our most welcome guests, and especially International Director Carol Prahinsky. Carol, this was an interpretive reading project of specifically interpreting an oratorical speech. As an evaluator, this provides me with 3 different challenges, 3 different issues that I have to deal with. One, as an interpretive reading assignment, I'm not going to be concerned at all with the content. What somebody wrote is unimportant. It's your interpretation of what somebody else wrote that we're concerned with here. Secondly, it's an oratorical speech. Many people know from previous evaluations that I all but worship conversationalism, but this is not the time to be conversational. In an oratorical speech, you need to be formal, and so this is different from that. And the third thing, and this breaks away from the Toastmasters basic manual, that the old paper-based manual that you were working from. that was not written for video, but of course we are a video club, and so I'm also going to be addressing the video aspects of what you did, all three of these. So let's start with the first two. How did you interpret the oratorical speech? And in a word, great. You weren't conversational, you were formal, but you weren't distant. You established a rapport with everybody. There was no doubt that you were speaking formally, but nevertheless, you established a connection with everybody. Your diction, your vocal variety, your vocal power, all of these were top-notch. You did not mimic President Obama, which you weren't supposed to, but rather you were to interpret what he did, and you did that very well. Your greatest strength is in the pause, the use of the pause. This is very oratorical. And again, you don't hear it in conversation, but you paused before every thought, before every major topic, you paused. You had a long pause. And yeah, I loved it at the end. You were running long. I was afraid you were going to run over time, but you bravely paused really long at the end before you said Toastmaster. That was brave. That was gutsy. It worked out. You shaved it by 1 second. You came in by 1 second. But it really, I applaud you. You did great there. Let me quickly look at the video aspects. Overall, excellent. Your video presence is outstanding, top-notch. I have a couple of suggestions. And this, again, applies purely to video. Number one, your background. Your tulips are great. Your tulips are pretty, but for getting the interpretation, maybe the Great Seal of the United States would have set the tone a little bit better. The other thing is that, of course, you had to read notes. You were supposed to read notes. But when you're on video, looking down to read your notes is a little more obvious. It would have been nice if you could have had your notes, as I have my notes, up beside the camera so that it's easier to maintain eye contact rather than looking down. But this was a fantastic interpretation and very logical. I'm looking forward to the next one. Madam General Evaluator.
I too have to remember to unmute so you'll hear my non-nutty words, my logical words. Yes, I use logic. Okay, on to the second evaluator, who is Chris Gould. Thank you for stepping on up to evaluate David Carr.
Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially David, you have really perfected your visuals. Still in the same closet that you used to present from, because your sunlight background is just so perfect and your lighting is perfect, and your switching to your slides was perfect. You really have the visuals down pat, and your opening was so friendly and engaging, and you used the theme for the meeting in talking about how chaos just happens to be a big part of politics, is what you were talking about. The purpose of the speech was to research a topic. So you had some slides that had a lot of data on them. One suggestion, you had 3 or 4 slides, and at least a couple of them were different types of slides. If they were meant to research kind of the same point, I would have preferred to see the same type of slides. I mean, bar graph or line for all of them rather than going back and forth. It was a little slightly confusing. I wasn't sure that I got your point there. And then you started talking about Florida and the different chaos, and the point was to choose a party. I thought you made that point very, very well. You know, I believe you. There is a reason to choose a party. In keeping with researching, I would have liked to maybe seen a couple of stories of when people who did not choose a party, you know, could have made a difference, or the people who did get chosen were not the best because of certain statistics. I'm not sure exactly what there, but always helps a speech to have a little bit of story. And then you were supposed to have an organized speech. That was perfect. You had an opening that engaged us. You had a middle where you gave us some statistics and some slides. And then you ended with a call to action to choose a party. It is important. Enjoyed it. Looking forward to registering people to vote with you, David. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you so much, Chris Gould. I'd now like to carry on and move right along because this clock is ticking to call on Nick Lacani for his evaluation of our third speech by Christopher Hulse.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Chris's speech, Our Big Family Secret. The key objective in the project is to understand that the story can be entertaining, yet display moral values. I would say that in this case, I felt that Chris understood this objective and did fulfill it. Let's look at more of the details that helped me come to this point of view. Was it simple and clear? Yes, absolutely. What else could be more simple and clear for a 7-year-old? You have an older sister. Shh, don't tell anyone. Yes, simple and clear, but complex, just like chaos theory for an adult, let alone a 7-year-old. This immediately captured and held my attention. I'm sure everyone has had similar bombshells in their lives, whether they're young or old. And this story resonated with me and probably with a lot of the audience. Did it have the main elements of a good story? Plot? Yes. Setting? Yes. Characters? Yes. Action? Yes. All of the above are good commendations for Chris. Well done. You actually put that together in a very strong, heartfelt way. For recommendations, I would say that as you become more comfortable in sharing your story, you will actually add more vocal variety. The reason I felt you weren't so comfortable is that I really could see the hurt there and the emotion. And things like this can only improve if you share it and be comfortable in sharing it. But that's up to you when to do that. I felt that in terms of vocal variety, you could have actually perhaps used rhetorical devices, asked questions, and then characterizations as well. As a second recommendation, I would like to see you eye level with the camera and closer in the screen as well, so that we can actually look even deeper into those strong, sad eyes. The biggest commendation, though, is that the emotion and authenticity was honest, heartfelt, and remarkably endearing. It gave the underlying moral of the story, which I took as, don't just think about yourself, think about Susie. How did she feel? So Chris was excited and elated. He had the presence of mind not to go overboard with Susie, not to actually expect too much. And yeah, it was a big twist, and it was a letdown. It could have been a lot worse, Chris, okay? So, you know, just, that was excellent. This kind of self-awareness is highly commendable. In summary, most project objectives were achieved, especially the twist. I would recommend better vocal variety and camera position. Overall, wonderful moral in the story, even though it clearly hurts so much. Thank you for sharing. I really look forward to your next speech, Chris. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Well done on those thoughtful evaluations. Now we're going to proceed in just a moment after we get the timer report. Let's see, Jim Barber's evaluation at 3.33, I think disqualifies him a little bit too long. Chris Gould at 2:51 and Nicola Connie at 3:30. So, David, clarify for me, please. Who's qualified? I'm just in a fog for a moment.
It would be Chris and Nick. So Nick squeaked it in. He was in the 30-second grace period.
Okay, so please send your votes to Christian to vote for your best evaluator. And now we're going to move on to the functionary reports. I would like everyone to be brief with your address at 1 minute or less. Let's start out with our grammarian, Lou.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I'll highlight some creative uses of phrases as well as use of word of the day. Carol with come out of the shadows, use of the word accountability. Pass a bill. And you use the word impugning, although I think I heard impunging. Tiger used the word of the day, also said optimistic. David, in his very patriotic speech, used words like speculation, partisanship, and the ever popular blah, blah, blah. Christopher, my secret mission, the word antiquated, my own flesh and blood, well, at least half of it. You said weird look that plunged into me like a knife. I'm not sure if that is grammatically correct. I would have said something like a weird look that felt like a knife plunging into me. Jacinta said, add that touch of salt. Marianne, PowerPoint, friend or foe. Psyche, I'll call you Psyche. Psyche said, use the theme, the words of the theme, order and chaos, and also said outer spaces, out of this world, which I thought was very interesting. Nick used authenticity and daring and the word self-awareness. Now Chris, Jim Barber also said gutsy. Chris Gould had sort of the funniest use of grammar because after she came out of being muted, she said, Dave's in the closet. If I missed any, other usage of the word of the day, I apologize.
Lou, we got to move right on along. I need to call on the watcher and chat monitor. Jacinta, please give us your report.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I had a very interesting time looking at everyone today. We always have very festive backgrounds. We have Jim, we have David, we have just everyone, and Marianne looking fabulous. When you are looking at us online, make sure to be in the center of the frame. So if you can, I notice Antoinette is kind of off to the side here. So Antoinette, if you can just scoop over just a tiny bit so we can see your lovely face. There is one point where Chris and Jim, you all look great now. It was really, really dark in the background. So I know the two of you lightened it up, which is awesome. Just keep that in mind. Try to be in the center, not lean too far back, but overall, everyone did a wonderful job in terms of watching it today. Now, for the chat, our chat was actually pretty quiet today. We had some conversation about bribing individuals for cookies, which is always, cookies will get anything you want them to get. And we talked about learning how to lip read, which was great for Monica because being online, we know when something is going on. We can kind of read everyone's lips at this point. And I definitely appreciate the shout out from David about on the Facebook page in terms of what our guests mentioned earlier today. And we had a couple cats debut also. We had Monica's cat, and we had Carol's cat debut on Online's Presenters today. So back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Jacinta. And now I'd like to hop on over to Roger to give us the quick and dirty version of an out-counter report.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Not only is this quick and dirty, it is also logical and orderly. First, a commendation to everybody. No one has used a crutch word for more than 10 times. So single digits for everybody. Number two, we have 3 winners tonight. At number 3, there's a tie between and you know. That's the third. The second winner tonight was and. And for the drum roll, the worst word that has been used most frequent tonight was so. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Let's see. Have I remembered everything? My mind's been a swirling chaotically, being VP of Membership, presiding officer, general evaluator, looking at everything, but we have been having a grand time. If I have neglected to call on you for a functionary report, would you raise your hand? Okay, then I'm going to speed on through some of my own notes for the evening. First, I want to call on my lovely DTM, Jacinta, because she has a special announcement to make.
Thank you so much, Madam General Evaluator and Vice President of Membership and Presiding Officer for today and Jack of all trades. So today I would like to share my screen because we have an exciting announcement for our Toastmaster Antoinette Trim. Congratulations, she has completed level 2 of motivational strategies. Congratulations, Antoinette. Woo-hoo. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
So my dear Antoinette, I love looking at this grand Toastmaster background in back of you, but tonight, I wish you had worn a headband or a hat because you're looking like you're balding prematurely. And I just got to be honest. I think there's a way to tweak
No,
that.
it's not so at all. I cut my hair low to the sides, low to the back,
You know what?
Russian heights.
You know what, Antoinette? I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
said Antoinette and I meant Jacinta.
Oh, Jacinta.
Antoinette, your hair is fine. I stand
It's up
corrected.
today.
You see, we're going with the chaos of the evening. It's fine. Jacinta, that was for you. Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to mention David Carr. I really loved your vocal variety tonight. And you're advancing from slide to slide. It was one of the most enjoyable speeches that you've given that I've had the pleasure to experience. Let's see. Who said be a... Oh, it was also you, David. You said play the game. It's like, join a party, really get into playing the game. That was great. We have been a little bit off with timing. The role of Toastmaster of the Day is a challenging one. There are many, many things, and it's always good to remember to, at the end of each section, call for the timer report so that the votes can start getting to the vote counter early on rather than in a crush at the end. So that's a little area to improve. But the spirit of this meeting has been great. All the guests I've been watching have been participating with gusto. Well, those who don't have webcams, I can't quite see, but was so pleased to have Anne-Marie make her appeal to us to join the club. That's all I'm going to say. It's now time for me to go on over to Asil. No, to go on over to Christian, our vote counter, and get our report on our winners for the evening. Christian.
All right. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. So drum roll for the best evaluator without any challenge. Well, a few challenge, but by far, Toastmaster Nick from the UK. He's the best evaluator. So congratulations. And this is where I hate being vote counter because I had to check the vote like 5 times just to make sure I wasn't doing any mistake. But for the best table topics, I got the vote. And I also did not vote for me, but I got the vote by 1. And hats off to our guest, Shai Kishore, because you're a close second. Thank you. And best speaker, well, it's the story with the emotional connection, Toastmaster Christopher. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations to all of our winners. And now we get to segue into that part of the evening where we get feedback from our guests. So I would like to call on Sherry first. Tell us a little bit about your experience tonight.
Thank you, Elaine. It was a wonderful meeting. The speeches were all very interesting, very thought-provoking, so that was really nice. And overall, just a wonderful experience. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Sherry. And next, I'd like to call on Tricia. Give us a little feedback about your experience tonight. If you can unmute. Let's see.
There we
Tricia,
go.
you're
Thank
unmuted.
you.
Go on ahead.
I unmuted my phone, but I didn't unmute the online, so sorry about
Okay.
that. Nope, I enjoyed the meeting. It's a nice lengthy meeting, and it's very dynamic. I like being able to see the presenters. Sorry you can't see me. A lot of good topics and good speaking ability. So yeah, I was very impressed. So I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now I'd like to call upon Sekishore. Please share with us your impressions of the evening.
I had a great time in this meeting. This is my first time and it was awesome. 3 great speeches and evaluations, and I love the table topics. I wish to come back again and again for free subsequent meets. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Anne-Marie, any parting thoughts from you? Anne-Marie, can you unmute? I'm trying to unmute you. Can you unmute? There you go.
Okay, it was again a very good meeting. I love the topics, the evaluators, the whole thought behind. It was also for me like a surprise that I could speak, and I realized a lot of things I was doing. So I'm trying now to speak slower and looking into the camera. So that was a very good experience also for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. At this point in time, I would like to ask if there are any other officers or members that need to make an announcement of import for our membership. David, are we still in the next couple hours receiving renewal memberships?
Well, potentially, I think everybody here who is a member has paid, so we're in pretty good shape. You know, there are a few, we lose a few every cycle, but we also gain quite a few. So.
Okay. In that case, we are overboard a little bit, so I'm going to wind up this meeting, giving kudos to our Toastmaster of the Day, Tiger, all of the guests that joined us. It was grand having such vibrant participation, and my bestie comment for the evening, Marianne with her background. I just loved it. And we had our share of chaos and order. What a grand experience. I'm so pleased to be a part of this dynamic club. Online presenters, please come back next week.